Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Extra chapters. Shizun's birthday. Fighting for affection, Part 3. Chu Wanning shivered and suddenly opened his eyes wide. Why aren't you wearing your robes? Ah. Mo Ran looked down to himself in a daze and saw that his upper body was bare. He raised his hand and touched himself. For a moment he didn't know how to explain. From Chu Wanning's perspective, Mo Ran seemed to be acting suspiciously and realized something. He then said to Mo Ran with a serious tone, Mo Ran. Mo Ran raised his hand and said, Here. Gaotu is still young. It may cultivate into a fei in the future. Didn't I told you before? You have to set a good example and not lead it astray. Yes, yes. Chu Wanning narrowed his eyes dangerously. Then, what are you doing? That's right. Mo Ran whispered, but can this fat dog really cultivate? He's afraid it was no use even if he recited sutra in its ear every day. Besides, what did this dog knew? Even if he slept in front of Gaotu every day, the dog won't probably understand what it meant to have a dog's life. But it's no good to outright refute Chu Wanning, so he could only pacify him. Thus, he said, Wanning, listen, it's not as if I'm doing something in secret. As he spoke, Gaotu, who probably thought that things were not chaotic enough, it escaped from his grasp and interrupted him with loud barks as soon as it managed to move its head up. Chu Wanning put his fingers to his forehead as if averting a coming headache. He gritted his teeth and said, Let it go first. Ah, right. Mo Ran let go of Gaotu and started again, Actually, Why are you still naked? Put on some clothes first, then explain. Mo Ran froze. Chu Wanning saw his strange expression, looked at him up and down and realized that it wasn't just Mo Ran's upper body that was bare. Even his underwear seemed to have disappeared. He couldn't help but be shocked. Where did your clothes go? In this embarrassing atmosphere, the yellow and white dog looked at Mo Ran with squinted eyes which held a tinge of dirty expression as if it was saying with a sneer, Ha ha! You fool! Let's see how you explain this. Mo Ran touched his nose and tried to clear his throat. Then he hesitatingly said, Wanning. Wanning, if I say that my clothes turned into a sea of flowers, would you believe it? Chu Wanning. In their cottage at Nanping Mountain, came the angry scoldings of Grandmaster Chu. Mo Weiyu, do you think your Shizun has become stupid just because he hasn't come down from the mountain in a long time? No. Shizun is the smartest, how can you scatter? Stand up and talk properly. When did you have a stutter? Mo Ran was really angry with Gaotu. He felt that this dog always had some ideas that it wasn't supposed to have, especially when it looked at people sideways. It seemed as if it was always trying to have one up against him. It wasn't like this when Ming Ming first picked it up from the haystack. That was 5 months ago. Now that it was all well and Chu Wanning likes it very much. From the first month, he had told Mo Ran that it was not mature enough and therefore forbidden him from showing it bad examples just like one would do in front of small children. Mo Ran as Grandmaster Mo thought he was doing quite well on that front. Half a month after they had adopted Gaotu, he thought that Taxian Jun had also tolerated the dog well, until that one unfortunate runaway incident. Chu Wanning had reprimanded Taxian Jun so much that he had to promise that he won't act ridiculously about it again, and quietly murmuring that he won't threaten Gaotu again to go to the kitchen so he could turn it into a dog stew. Now, he realized that adopting Gaotu was a wrong choice. He should have snuffed the dog in the cradle from the beginning. What brought this about? Well, Chu Wanning's birthday celebration was approaching. Mo Ran had started to collecting things that he could bring into the box of thoughts. Fresh fish, millet, sugar cane, bamboo dragonflies, paper butterflies, silk handkerchiefs. Taking advantage of the time when Chu Wanning went out to pick fresh fruits in the depths of Nanping Mountains, Moran searched for every grain and every rag in their cottage to add to his collection to be put in the stomach pocket of the tyrant SHIZUN'S rice cake monster. Gautu looked at him with a frightened look on its face. It seemed uncertain whether he was the house owner or a burglar posing as the house owner. If it could speak at the moment, he would probably say, "No, brother. Why won't you even spare my dog bowl?" Ah! Correction, it was a magical dog bowl. As he was about to grab the bowl, Gautu reacted sharply and hurriedly clapped its teeth against the bowl and started a tugging struggle against Moran. "Wong wong wong. Don't snatch my bowl." Moran also didn't let go. "Are you kidding? This bowl is Kunlun blue glaze made from Taxu Palace. Food that was placed in it would remain fresh for days as if it was just scooped from the pot." Before adopting Gautu, Moran was planning on keeping a cat. A soft, quiet, and sensible white cat. Cats only ate a small amount of food. Considering that he and Chu Wanning would sometimes go out on missions for days, he wanted to have the cat fresh food for days. Thus, he asked Mei Hangxiu to find such type of bowl for him. Unfortunately, the cat plan was a bust and they ended up taking in this silly dog instead. What use was this bowl that could keep food fresh for 3 days when upon putting food in the bowl, this dog would eat through the bottom if you blink 3 times? "Let go. I'm the one who originally bought this bowl. Wong wong wong, but you gave it to me? I only let you borrowed it, now I'm taking it back. Wong wong wong. You fart. Let go. Wong wong. No. Down. Wong. Die." As the man and the dog was having their tug of war, the courtyard door creaked open. Chu Wanning held a basket of sweet and delicious fruits. He was frozen in the pose of pushing the door open as he saw the commotion in the front yard, that a kneeling Moran was fighting with Gautu over the bowl. After a long silence, Chu Wanning put the bamboo basket on the stone table in the courtyard, took a fruit, thought about it and then took several more. The Baidu immortal drooped his eyes and said to Moran, "You stay here. I will wash some fruits for you." As Moran turned to see him go inside the kitchen, he could hear Chu Wanning sighing and murmuring to himself, "Is the congee I feed him this morning bad? Was it not enough? How could he be so hungry that he will fight the dog over food?" Moran. "SHIZUN. Wait. It's not what you think. Ouch." While he hurriedly turned towards Chu Wanning to explain, Gautu scratched the back of his hand with a whine. Moran released his hold of the bowl with a scream. The yellow and white dog ran out of the door with the bowl leaving a cloud of dust. Moran clenched his teeth, covered his scratched hand and scolded, "You silly dog." After lunch, Moran put down his chopsticks and announced that he will go to the nearby linen city to buy some medicine. When he left, he brought the box of thoughts with him. As soon as he left their courtyard gate, he quickly looked for a deserted place, recited the password "It is foolish to gift gold" and entered the box of thoughts once more. The tyrant SHIZUN'S rice cake monster was basking in the sunshine near the flower field from yesterday. When it saw Moran, it hummed and said, "Come, come, come. Were you waiting for a long time?" The tyrant rice cake waved its hand to show its disapproval but turned its eyes on the treasures that Moran brought with him as it asked, "What did you bring this time?" Moran was not in a hurry. He smiled and handed it a fresh peach. "This is for you." It was picked by Wanning. The mung-bean eye of the SHIZUN'S rice cake monster lit up, turned its head and honestly say, "I'm so happy I could die." A small claw pulled open its front pocket. Moran laughed and said, "Really? But it's just fresh peach." The tyrant rice cake just stuffed the peach in its pocket. The SHIZUN'S rice cake monster that has been bribed by a peach coughed a few times and tried to school its face into a stern, calm expression, and said, "All right, come here and be polite." After that, it coughed a few more times, moved its little buttocks to the tree stump and sat upright. "Come on, let see what you have brought with you." The witty Grandmaster Mo laughed and said, "All right, is Mr. Osman's rice cake ready to exchange some materials? No, no problem. Moran handed all the bits and pieces he had managed to get his claws into after searching all day. The tyrant Osman's rice cake monster looked at the kinkin pouch and double-checked the things inside and sighed. Moran's heart tightened. The tyrant rice cake raised its eyes and said, "I have to say, you are really poor." Moran's hung down his head as his bangs covered his face, looking somewhat helpless, and said, "I don't really know what you want. There are better things, but they are for our everyday use. If you think this is not enough, then I'll—" "It's all right," the tyrant rice cake interrupted him and said, "considering that you are using your money to help others, I will make the exchange." Deep in its heart, the tyrant Osman's rice cake monster was thinking, "For the sake of the peach you gave, I will make the exchange." Aloud, it continued, "What I will give won't be the best, since the things you exchange was not much. But the items in our village are all amazing. Even if it got broken, you can fix it with imagination and hard work. This would ensure a very satisfactory exchange." Moran's worry turned into joy as he laughed. "Really? Thank you very much." The tyrant Osman's rice cake monster waved its hand again and began to exchange with the things the Moran brought inside the box of thoughts. "For the fresh fish, you can change this." The tyrant rice cake pulled out a pile of soft felt fabric from its pocket. "What is this?" This cloth was made of 4 kinds of cat hair. Moran opened his eyes in surprise and took the bundle of cloth. "Cat hair can also be weaved into cloth." "Hair of 9 big catfays, yes." The tyrant rice cake explained, and then pulled out another thing from his pocket. "Bamboo dragonflies can be replaced by this one." Moran looked at the pile of plain sticks and said, "What is this?" "Take one, put it in the cooking stove and it would turn into good firewood. Although it's not the best, but it's still quite good exchange." Afterwards, the tyrant Osman's rice cake monster pulled out a series of strange stuff like extra large shells, bells that drift down snow when the wind blow on it, swallows which are good with nesting, bricks that automatically pave into road, and fire that understands spoken command. However, the most valuable things he brought was actually the candies that Chu Wanning made. The tyrant rice cake loved it very much. According to it, it was the favorite food of the Osman's rice cake monsters. Moran found it both surprising and amusing. He thought that if it weren't for him, Wanning would not cook every day, as he would be happy to eat candy all the time. He could definitely bring loads of candy with him. Out loud, he asked, "What would I get for the candies?" "You wait and see," the tyrant rice cake said. He chewed on a piece of candy and then flicked its paws. Soon, Moran saw a golden lotus pond appeared beside the flower field. The water in the pond was like melted gold, and there were many beautiful snow flowers in it. The tyrant rice cake said boastfully, "When you think you need it, just tell the fish in the pond twice and you will have lotus leaves floating to bring you mulberry, as well as fresh lotus root and tender eel, as much as you want. Enough, enough for your birthday feast." "Well, isn't for great?" Moran stared at the pond for a moment, then turned his head, went over to the tyrant Osman's rice cake monster and said, "I'll bring you a bag of candies next time." "Zeng, Zeng. You're great," it stammered as soon as he got excited. Moran said sincerely, "No, you are the best." With the materials he got from the tyrant rice cake, Moran rolled up his sleeves and began to work. SHIZUN'S birthday is the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow, Taxi and June would come. He must work faster. As long as he worked hard inside the box of thoughts today, as well as on the day after tomorrow, he should be able to show his surprise gift to his SHIZUN in the evening after they had eaten longevity noodles. While thinking like this, he quickly set up the cloth, timber, and another materials he got from the fairyland and started to build an idyllic cottage for SHIZUN. It was neither extravagant and wasteful, and he was definitely not making noise that could annoy his SHIZUN. Thus, Moran happily worked with his hands and feet, not minding the fatigue. This year's birthday celebration, SHIZUN will have a happier day than last year. However, Grandmaster Mo was naive. He might not have intention to compete for affection with himself, but same could not be said of Taxian Jun. Taxian Jun had always been looking to defeat Grandmaster Mo and was definitely unwilling to let him win over him in anything. He should know that after the retirement to Nanping Mountain, Taxian Jun was always holding his breath with Grandmaster Mo, always picking a fight with him. The two personalities may not entirely share their memories of when they took control of the body, but each could still recall bits of pieces of it. Fact was, this situation was actually worse than having full knowledge or total ignorance. It was like scratching an itch through a layer of yarn. A small simple matter could blow up into a huge issue. For example, a few days ago, Chu Wanning served Taxian Jun a bowl of porridge, to which Taxian Jun intently stared at, then suddenly said, "This venerable one remembers that yesterday you did not cook porridge." "Yes, that's correct." Chu Wanning answered lightly, "So. But this venerable one does not remember what you did yesterday." "I didn't cook yesterday, I went down to the village and bought some steamed buns instead." Taxia Jun quit staring at the porridge and fixed his dark purplish eyes on Chu Wanning and strongly demanded, "This venerable one should also have steamed buns." Chu Wanning retorted, "Didn't you say you wanted porridge when you woke up this morning?" "No. This venerable one also wants steamed bun in his meal." "How come you buy him steamed buns and didn't want to buy for this venerable one?" "I think what you need is medicine." "Steamed buns. Porridge only. Porridge and steamed buns." Chu Wanning didn't want to argue with him, so he just said, "You can eat whatever you like, but you can't have that." Taxian Jun almost fainted in anger. He grabbed Chu Wanning's wrist, pulled him over and pressed him against the kitchen table. Drooping his eyelashes to look down at Chu Wanning, he questioned, "What kind of attitude is this? How come he could eat steamed bun and this venerable one can only drink porridge? Are you trying to say that he was better than this venerable one? I only think you were less ill yesterday than you are today." Taxian Jun was silent for a while and seemed to be contemplating to continue his tantrums, then just became sad and said, "So, that how it is? Chu Wanning, you were just lying then when you said that him and this venerable one was one and the same person, right? How can you not serve same dishes to same person? Why do you favor him so?" Chu Wanning quietly said, "The same person won't enjoy eating the same meal every morning. Stop talking and eat your porridge, otherwise it will turn cold." "I won't eat it," said Taxian Jun exclaimed. "Really?" "No." Chu Wanning nodded and said, "Fine, then I will give it to Gaotu instead. It's a pity since it's cooked in the way you like the most." And just like that, Taxian Jun was always competing with Grandmaster Mo for favor and merit. As for Grandmaster Mo, who has experienced 2 lifetimes and was the calmer personality between the two, he couldn't understand this foolish behavior at all. At this moment, Mo Ran was working hard to achieve his goal. He has no idea that in a mere few hours, he would switch character with Taxian Jun. He had no idea what sort of deplorable actions he would take. None at all. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat SHIZUN. Extra chapters. SHIZUN'S birthday. Fighting for affection, Part 4. The next morning, Taxian Jun squinted his eyes as he sat under the loquat tree in the courtyard. He was peeling loquats for himself as he pondered about something. After switching consciousness, he couldn't remember anything else that have happened in the past 3 days. He only vaguely remembered that he received a wooden box. It was an SHIZUN'S rice cake monster. SHIZUN'S rice cake monster gave it to him. It seemed to be related to Chu Wanning's birthday present. But he couldn't remember anything more than that. Taxian Jun dared not take this thing lightly. After all, he was of opinion that Grandmaster Mo was a very shrewd person full of schemes. He appeared to be an honest person, but in reality, he was a hypocrite and had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. Whereas he himself was a handsome, Domineering and powerful man who treated people sincerely. An honest man like himself was really at a disadvantage. Taxian Jun sighed deeply, a contemplative glint in his purplish black eyes. The loquat juice was very sticky. He raised his hand and licked his fingertips to taste the delicate sweetness, then said to himself, "You can't lose." This venerable one was the emperor. In his court, this venerable one was the most knowledgeable. It has been said that if one knew the enemy, 100 battles can be won. As long as this venerable one haven't seen any sign of Grandmaster Mo's victory yet, then he could push and fight back. However, wanting to know what Grandmaster Mo was preparing as a birthday gift is one thing, and how to know what was it is another matter. He did not communicate with his other self, and it wasn't as if Grandmaster Mo was a ghost that he could interrogate. Well, maybe he could try and ask Chu Wanning himself if he has any idea? No, no. This idea was quickly rejected by Taxian Jun himself. He remembered an instance in his past life when there was an incoming festivity. Song Kayutong dressed up for the occasion in order to appeal pleasing to him. She came knocking in his door and coquettishly tried to find out if her wife Sister Chu had prepared any gift for him. At that time, the 8 sufferings and everlasting hatred flower was still festering in his heart. Looking at the Song Kayutong, who thought herself being clever but actually was having a melon for a head, he had to spend his whole lifetime of cultivation not to lash out, and angrily shouted, "What gift?" Chu Wanning would not bother to give this venerable one even a lousy gift for the festival. "Are you satisfied now?" But he suppressed his anger. Instead, he grinned and deflected it by saying, unexpectedly, the Empress seemed to be so concerned about Chu Fei. Should this venerable one go and visit Chu Fei to see the gift being prepared, if it was the same as that of the Empress? Song Kayutong's beautiful face flashed with apprehension. Then she acted even more submissively and charming out of fear and in hope to win the Emperor's regards. She coaxed him by saying, this lowly one simply just couldn't make up her mind and would like to know what Sister Chu thinks. "Oh, you want to know what Chu Fei thinks?" Taxian Jun let the words hang on his mouth for a while. He then sneered and looked like a cold sword recently drawn from its sheath. "So, you want to show that the Empress has no thoughts of her own? Do you want to be a mere concubine yourself, or do you want to be not even a concubine at all?" She was so frightened that Song Kayutong staggered and fell to her knees to kowtow, knocking her head in succession. At that time, he only felt disgusted and angry at the same time. In his heart, it was as if a dragon and a tiger were fighting and biting each other into pieces. Lu Gong, who had witnessed the incident, said that the Emperor was just feeling moody, but nobody knew the truth. Even Song Kayutong herself did not realize how hurtfully closed she was to the crux of the matter. Chu Wanning had been living as a glorified prisoner in the palace for so long, and he was yet to win him over, have failed to win his love despite his efforts. Obedience, yes. He had managed to force obedience out of him, but the affection that he had been longing for was as out of reach as the moon. Even when the snow was deep on New Year's Eve, his secret wish of a Happy New Year greeting remained an illusion. What Song Kayutong was doing only pricked at his self-esteem and poked at his bruised heart. It served to mock him for his fruitless endeavors, insulted him for being a scorned lover, a poor wretch who can only aspire for what he cannot have. How dare she? How dare she? The Emperor's face turned blue with anger, while Song Kayutong's face turned white with fear. He looked at her sadly. The truth could not be said out loud, so she remained ignorant of the fault she had committed. Neither the Emperor nor the Empress realized that her struggle to win the Emperor's favor was a lost cause from the very beginning. So, yes. Asking Chu Wanning was not an option. After recalling this memory, Taxian Jun have just become firmer in this conviction. The essence of fighting for one's affection lies in the clouds and breeze, which were both indifferent to the cause. The worst that one can do was to expose themselves and let the concerned person know all about it from the beginning. However, how can he take Grandmaster Mo's plans lightly and treat it indifferently? He didn't have much time left. Tomorrow will be Chu Wanning's birthday. He had only the last few hours to win the war which he could not afford to lose. As he contemplated a course of action, Taxian Jun saw Gaotu running past him chasing a butterfly. The dog perceived that it was being looked at and made a sudden stop as it tilted over its head. With squinted eyes, it gazed at the former emperor who were deep in thought. The dog's eyes seemed to be full of wisdom and concerns. Taxian Jun got a good idea. Yes. Good dog. Come here. Such a good dog. Taking advantage of that fact that Chu Wanning went over to check out their farm in Nanping Mountains, Taxian Jun took Gaotu in his arms, put it on his thighs and then rubbed the dog's paws with a smile that he thought was very kind and coaxing. This venerable one knows that you are the smartest dog in the world, that you can understand what this venerable one is saying. Gaotu. This venerable one wants to know something. Do you know of a wooden box that was sent here a few days ago? Gaotu, whoop. Yes. Can you bring that box to this venerable one? Gaotu, whoop. Maybe. Taxian Jun's face fell a little but he still smiled and said, how about for a reward of a Meatbun? Gaotu, Wang. Wang. 2. All right, 2 it is. Gaotu, wow. The thing was, the dog like Taxian Jun was better at communicating with his peers compared to the man like Grandmaster Mo. The man and the dog easily reached an agreement to commit crime despite speaking in 2 different languages. The dog wagged its tail and jumped out of the arms of Taxian Jun. It ran to the depth of their humble cottage. In a short time, it became a traitor to Grandmaster Mo. It pulled out the box of thoughts out of Grandmaster Mo's things and dragged it over to Taxian Jun across the mud. So fast. Wang wang wang. That's right. Be amazed of my greatness. Taxian Jun was very satisfied as he smiled and patted Gaotu, you are such a good dog. This venerable one. As Taxian Jun was thinking of appropriate title to bestow Gaotu, he suddenly heard a familiar set of footsteps outside the courtyard door. Taxian Jun schooled his facial expression as soon as possible. He raised his hand and threw the box of thoughts deep into his sleeves. Then he straightened himself as if nothing out of ordinary was happening and say, Wanning is back. Gaotu also straightened up, wagged its tail calmly as if nothing was happening and it flatteringly tried to welcome Chu Wanning. Chu Wanning, who had just come back from his trek through the mountain, looked at the man and the dog. He can help but felt that the two was involved in some sort of mysterious conspiracy and therefore suspiciously asked, what are you up to? Taxian Jun quickly changed the topic by asking, how was this venerable one's harem doing? Chu Wanning replied, your Xiao Kui and Xiao Hong are both dead. Taxian Jun was shocked, what happened? There was a storm last night. You planted Xiangfei bamboo and red hatang on the south hillside where both were blown down. I told you before that you should not plant them in the windward part of the rock wall. Since you refuse to listen, you can only learn from this lesson. Taxian Jun became instantly sad and morose. When he arrived at Nanping Mountain, he rushed to pull grass and clear plot of lands for planting together with Chu Wanning. Although he was indeed kidding around with Chu Wanning by calling his flowering plants his harem, he wasn't really referring to them as the concubines in the Empress Palace but rather as princes and princesses that he and Wanning planted together. Now that their children have died, what would he do? No. This venerable one is going to take a look. No need. Chu Wanning was amused that he was taken seriously. He immediately pulled him over and said to him, I have taken care of it. I have already applied spiritual spells to connect all the broken flowers and branches back together. Really? Really? Taxian Jun stared at him for a while. Since Chu Wanning did not add more, he suddenly opened his arms and embraced him firmly. Chu Wanning wasn't expecting to be embraced by his waist. He gave a sigh and a helpless laugh, what are you doing? Taxian Jun sat while Chu Wanning remained standing. Taxian Jun's head rested by Chu Wanning's abdomen, fighting the urge to rub his face against it but somewhat feeling bashful to do so. Finally, he could only say with a muffled voice, "This venerable one is so happy." This was proof of Chu Wanning's love. He knew that he will be distressed when he learned that the plants and trees he planted was destroyed by the wind and rain. So, without saying anything, he saved them right away. Just like how the withered tree bloomed when spring comes, his once withered heart upon being tended by Chu Wanning have once again bloomed red with blood and blossomed with love. At long last, he could walk openly to the light once again. And in order make the light shine a little brighter on himself and a little less on Grandmaster Mo, Taxian Jun became even more firm in his determination to solve the mystery of Grandmaster Mo's gift. Unlike Grandmaster Mo, who wasn't conscious about their situation, he refused to agree that the two of them were one and the same person. Grandmaster Mo held no hostility towards him, but him on the other, had fought tooth and nails with Grandmaster Mo every single chance he got. Taxian Jun used the excuse that, "This venerable one is in good mood today, so this venerable one will cook today," and shut himself quietly inside the kitchen to scrutinize the box of thoughts. The Emperor's intuition was telling him that as long as he could open the box, he would learn about the mystery behind Grandmaster Mo's gift. But the problem was, the box appeared seamless and he couldn't find any sort of opening or keyhole. How on earth would he open this box? Maybe through incantation? And thus, he said over it, "Open the box." It was useless. "You know you want to." It remained closed. "I'll show you this handsome face." The box stayed motionless. Taxian Jun tried all kinds of spells and incantations, each one more incomprehensible than the other, until at long last he had lost his patience. He planned to harden his palm and split the box in two. He slammed down, only to hear a crash. The bench under the box was broken, but the box was still in one piece. "That's strange, this venerable one doesn't sense any malicious intent." Taxian Jun got angry and started to use blades to cut the box horizontally and vertically with more than 20 knives. But since he cannot use spiritual power or his full strength for fear of destroying their cottage, he could only exert about 1/10 of his strength. After half a day of hacking, the box remained closed and whole. Bothered by the sound, Chu Wanning knocked on the kitchen door and inquired, "Mo Ran? What are you doing in there? Why is there so much noise?" "I'm cutting some stuffing." Taxian Jun casually said, "I'm making dumplings." Chu Wanning was quiet for a while and then said, "We have wontons the day before yesterday. I haven't used up all the wrappers yet. You can still use those." "Oh, I see." After hearing that, did Taxian Jun reacted sensibly? "Of course not. Chu Wanning made wontons for Grandmaster Mo again, but not for me." This thought made him even angrier and feel that he must get back at Grandmaster Mo one way or another. He would make sure that he would have nothing to show for on Chu Wanning's birthday. The hypocrite villain. He wanted to compete with him. Huh. Good luck with that. Taxian Jun's eyes were covered with miasma of darkness. He stared at the box as he brushed his slender and long fingers against the rough texture on his head. Bile was rising from his heart. He thought, what if I throw this box at the bottom of the cliff? Isn't this his birthday gift? He wouldn't be able to find a better gift for Chu Wanning before sunset today. As for him, he was the first emperor of the cultivation world. There was nothing he could not do if he wanted to have something unique in heaven or earth. Although, he never missed those days when he was the emperor holding court, he still loved to dress up and sniff the fireworks up in the mountains. However, he would gladly give it up to come back to this world of warmth and light. Even when he had to disguise himself as Grandmaster Go to earn some money down in the mountains, it was still preferable compared to sitting in that silent and cold palace at that time where even the presented rare treasures have lost their brilliance and meaning. Carnal pleasure was good but lacks sweetness if it's not done out of love. Still, Taxian Jun have a reputation to keep and have to especially distinguished himself from the poor Grandmaster Mo. Even if he secretly loved the cabbage and boiled tofu cooked in the most humble of farmers' house, he would hum and pretend that his favorite food was what's being served during a grand banquet, those precious seafood. This kind of thick face and fat man's prestige was also good, occasionally. That was to say that Taxian Jun firmly believed that he could sucked up to death to Chu Wanning and made him believe that this kind of thing was beneath him. He would then regale him with how he searched the rivers and lakes just to find the treasures he would proudly present him with, then he was sure he would have the perfect stage to which he would receive abundant of praises. He definitely would. After this idea had taken root in his mind, Taxian Jun stood up, intending to put away the wooden box for the meanwhile and then throw it out that afternoon. However, he was having second thoughts about doing it as his conscience was somewhat disturbed. If he did throw this box away, that would be one less gift for Chu Wanning. What if he couldn't find a better replacement? What if Chu Wanning likes this box and found out that this venerable one have destroyed it? Wouldn't that cause trouble for this venerable one? This venerable one was now his favorite, but if he ended up in trouble, what would he do? How would he pacify him? Would it be useless to cajole him? Thinking about it, he felt a little sad. Since ancient times, a ruthless emperor's ruin had always been once he fell in love, as he would often throw his lot with his lover's family. But then he thought, Chu Wanning shouldn't be that unhappy about such a trivial matter, and thus, he hardened his heart. This venerable one would not be cowed. Taxian Jun sighed in his heart. At that moment, he suddenly saw a white figure passing by the small window covered with wooden grate. He knew something was amiss and immediately tried to grab it. However, the thing ran so fast that the only thing he could see was its white tail with a blue light at the end of it. He didn't even manage to see its whole body before it disappeared into the grass. But then, he noticed a rolled bunch of green lotus leaves was stuffed between the cracks of the window fence. It's an SHIZUN'S rice cake monster. A sudden flash of memory came to Taxian Jun's mind of what had happened about 2 days ago. He immediately raised his hand to pull out the lotus leaves left by the SHIZUN'S rice cake monster and hand them out by the sunshine sprinkled outside the window. He could not help but be overjoyed, and then he immediately became angry. Taxian Jun scolded his other personality angrily, "How dare you, Mo Wei-yu? How dare you mock this venerable one?" His fury was fueled by what was on the lotus leaf. The crooked characters read as follows. To the venerable emperor. I'm the SHIZUN'S rice cake who admires His Majesty. I sneaked out of the village to report to His Majesty that this is a box of thoughts. It's a door to a fairyland. Grand Master Mo put a jigger in it. The password to open the box is "It is foolish to gift gold." This is as much help that I could extend to His Majesty. I'm rooting for you. I know you can do it. Taxian Jun didn't know what this jigger meant, but he speculated that the SHIZUN'S rice cake monster probably just doesn't know the human language for it, since the letter also included some of the Fae's own language, but he understood that it was praising itself for its cleverness and wit. This SHIZUN'S rice cake monster was very good. It has done very well for letting him know what was going on. For its accomplishment, he would grant it the title of the master of the SHIZUN'S rice cake monster in Nanping Mountain. Meanwhile, he suppressed his indignation for being mocked at by that other man. With gritted teeth, he said toward the box, "It's foolish to gift gold." A golden light flashed and Taxian Jun disappeared from the cottage's kitchen. He was sent into the box, too. End chapter.